So, my next question would be some potential ways to deal with high levels of stress and anxiety.
Right. Okay. Let me start from a previous point that I made. I
Yes.
think that I want to make. I think it's important. Stress and anxiety. Everybody actually experiences stress, anxiety,
Mhm.
worry, and sadness.
Mhm.
It is important that we don't medicalize that. Not
Mhm.
all stress and anxiety and sadness actually require to see a psychiatrist or a medic,
Yes.
or you need to take medication for that.
Mhm.
Yes, when it actually influences, when it is actually severely disturbing your life, that you can carry on your day-to-day life over a period of time, yes, then you might actually seek professional or
Mhm.
medical help. But otherwise, you don't necessarily have to have that. You can deal with it yourself to a certain extent. And I think the way we can actually do that is, again, one of the mindfulness is one technique that we can actually create that
Mhm.
awareness, and get through those worries and anxieties. And there are various yoga,
Mhm.
meditation, exercises, hobbies, and a range of ways. Walks, just
Mhm.
walking around, in open air and having fresh air, and all those things actually creates that feeling of satisfaction, and I think bringing that self-esteem. And I think it's important to improve the self-esteem, because you know it is we have to work at it. Nobody
Mhm.
else would be actually working on our
Yes.
behalf. We have to work at it, and then it is only it's 50% of the things actually
Mhm.
your own work. And I think then you can actually seek help in terms of a trusted friend or a
Mhm.
trusted family member who might actually listen to your worries or anxieties, and how they might actually provide you a non-judgmental response to those things. So that might actually help. Another tried and tested way, which does not actually require any of these things. When you actually get very, very worried, when you get very angry,
Mhm.
when you get so anxious, the simple thing is actually just write down. Just write down what is actually causing you anxiety.
Yeah.
Just list all the things that actually causes anxiety. Not in any specific order. You just write them down.
Exactly.
Just writing them down alone would actually lower your anxiety level to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Then if you can go back to those things and see what are the things, and some of the things you may not think, oh, it's total rubbish. Why am I actually? Why is it actually causing me some kind of an anxiety? So I think you can actually go through those lists and then try and work through some of those
Mhm.
things. And again, along with that, if you can understand what is actually causing you anxiety
Mhm.
or sadness, then you should be able to try and think about it in a different context. You should just try and put your mindset in a different perspective through meditation, yoga, and mindfulness,
Yeah.
and try and create that kind of an inbuilt strength and different ways and um, different behavioral and thinking patterns that
Mhm.
would help you in overcoming those things. That would come automatically to
Mhm.
many of us. It's only in severe cases that we would actually seek professional help. Many of
Mhm.
those things, we have that strength, to create those positive thinking and behavioral ways of actually dealing with it.
Mhm. Thank you for sharing this. So it kind of captures everything I as a person believe in as well. Because when I started living abroad away from family, and like it was, I think I was 21. Whenever I used to feel like homesick, lonely, and those emotions, I wasn't able to kind of understand why this is happening, because generally I'm a very strong person. I always used to jot it down. Not it's just like random scribbling, and after like 4 or 5 times I used to kind of just go through it, and then I used to see with a calm mind that there are few things which are in common in each stress attack kind of a thing. So
Yes, yes.
this is very very helpful. Thank you so much. So yeah, so we kind of answered how a person can build strength and resilience. I would like to understand from you, because you've been doing a lot of projects with different institutes, different government organizations all across UK and India. How important is the role of neuroscience in this? Because I know you're already working with NIMHANS.
Yes. Well, neuroscience has to, this is about cultural neuroscience.
Yes.
And I think neuroscience has to understand that there is culture and one's traditions actually influences those
Mm-hmm.
patterns, the thinking mode, etc.
Yeah.
Because it is not just the thinking alone. And I think it is, and I think the pure biological, physiological, or medical way of
Mm-hmm.
actually looking at it, it does not actually enable to build a full understanding of a person's feelings or thoughts as to why that person is actually behaving in such a way. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's where the cultural neuroscience comes in. You need
Mm-hmm.
to try and understand
Yes.
from that perspective, not purely as a kind of as a stimulus response reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Is not what we actually look for. So
Yeah.
neuroscience does actually it is a very infant area in the sense that not much is actually written about it. So obviously it's an expanding. We need to have
Yes.
more research and understanding as to how can neuroscience, how can culture work in tandem with
Right.
neuroscience in more understanding for mental health therapies and also different ways of actually approaching
Mm-hmm.
some of those things. And I know artificial intelligence is actually a lot of people are actually working on these apps and how apps might actually be an answer to all
Yeah.
therapeutic modalities. But the apps can be all, whether it would replace a psychiatrist is a different question. I don't think it will. But I think apps and some of those, the way therapy can be programmed and provided through these apps and through artificial intelligence modalities has a role in it.
Yes.
For some people,
Mm-hmm.
for some people it might not work. For some people it might actually work. But I think in a working together with a joined up service with professionals and with this artificial intelligence more would
Mm-hmm.
be a better way of actually
Yes.
looking at sort of building this cultural
So,
neuroscience.
like in your terms, if so it's like building resilience, like kind of summarizing this thing, like building resilience, you are the one who have to fight your fight, but all of these things which we are talking about, be it neuroscience, neurofeedback, medication to some extent, or even yoga and meditation, these are just playing supporting roles in your movie, because you do the movie kind of stuff. So these are the supporting roles, but it has to come from within. None of these can treat you fully, that from a stressed day, the next day you are like doing everything. It's just that you have to have this inner resilience, and then only these things will help you.
Yes, that's true. Resilience is not something a pack that we can buy from a supermarket.
Exactly.
Resi- Resilience is something that we have to work at.
Yes.
Resilience is something that we have to think about.
Mm-hmm.
It actually it comes over a period of time, and I
Mm-hmm.
think one has to when does one understand that one is resilient about it? Because we have to reflect,
Yes.
because you have to think about, where have I come from? And I think all the kind of experiences that I have, and I've overcome some of those difficulties. Such as, say, for example, last time, where you might have actually thought about, I have a very bad experience with my boss.
Yeah.
And it wasn't very good. So next time you might have think, why am I actually having that, and how can I actually overcome some of those things?
Yes.
And you might have actually have put in a new way of actually approaching that problem,
Mm-hmm.
new way of thinking about it, and new behavioral patterns to
Mm-hmm.
go with it, etc. And I think, and after a while, yeah, I have actually overcome that. I've become more resilient to
Yes.
seeing, even though you might be a kind of a very, you might think there's a negative person, seeing him makes me very anxious. But I think you become more resilient, and I can cope with that negativity from him, and I can overcome that. I don't feel very anxious. I don't feel very sad about it. So it is something that one has to work through. It is
Mm-hmm.
something that one has to be very conscious of.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we lead a life. Our life is actually more about understanding ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
At the moment, everything seems to be the whole of social media seems to be about
Yeah.
other people. The
Mm-hmm.
more we externally look at it, the more worried we will actually get. There's a lot of
Yes.
studies actually showing, the even in loneliness and social isolation is a
Mm-hmm.
big issue. Even with the advent of social media,
Yes.
many young people in the UK, we have a number of studies showing they're very lonely. So
Yes.
they might have thousands of Facebook friends, but they're still very very lonely.
Yeah.
So it is because of the fact that they're not thinking about themselves. They have to understand how this is actually affecting their own life.
Mm-hmm.
How is it that I can actually do certain things in life?
Yes.
How am I actually going to approach that person, approach that problem?
Mm-hmm.
How am I going to relate to my friends, my
Mm-hmm.
family, etc. It is not an autopilot mode. It is
Yeah.
very much that one has to be responsible for it.
Yes, and this is very true, because I went through this study where they were talking about how actually it was a marketing study, And there were these insights on how Instagram, Facebook, these social media handles are used by corporates to kind of create and show them the life people want, and this is how they market it. But then there is a reverse part to it, where it, because people want that, and when they can't have that, it results in those issues, uh, stress, anxiety, and then there comes the loneliness, because you're not happy with by yourself.
Yes, yes, that's true. Because obviously, you're not. The thing is that the less you actually aspire to other people's lives, the better it is.
Yes.
Because I think you got to manage your own life first, and
Yeah.
then manage other people's lives.
Yes. Oh, this was so nice. Okay, so now as a last part of our section of our life, I generally ask the guests to share a story. It can be of yourself, it can be of anybody, an example which the audience could help relate to and understand, where how the resilience comes, or maybe how mental health importance is, awareness is needed. So just a story example close to your heart, which you can share with the audience.
Well, really, I'm nothing at that time rather than telling other people's story. I'll tell you my own story, I think.
Yes.
In terms of resilience, I mean, I have a hearing problem, and I don't. I'm deaf in my one ear, and I have very very little hearing in the other ear. And obviously, it's been there with me for the last 30 years. But that's even when I couldn't hear anything. I still used to actually attend conferences in America, and I used to make a talk. But I used to do a conference talk, but I wouldn't understand what questions were actually people were actually asking me. I would just do the talk and go out of it. But I think it is that motivation, I think. And I think regardless of what problems that you may actually have, and it is very negative, because people tend, when you, because it is a stigma issue.
Yes.
The moment you think that, the moment you tell somebody that you can't hear, then they don't speak to you.
Yeah.
So they always speak to my wife, not to me. And I think, because they think that, I can't hear anything. Well, so I think I've lived through that process, whereby, and then I get very annoyed about why are they not speaking to me? Why are they only directing the questions to somebody else? So I've finally come to kind of realization that obviously one has to wear that hearing aid and all those kind of things in terms of getting through those supposed to speak out. But at the same time, never lose hope.
Yes.
Never lose hope. I think hope is something that you can actually always, you're not actually going to get to the moon. We know that. But I think you could get halfway through that process. And I think having that hope and having that motivation, and that I can actually, regardless of my disabilities, regardless of whatever actually happens in my life, there are certain things that actually I can actually achieve in my life. Certain things I know I can't actually achieve in my life. I may never be a millionaire. I know that. But I can talk about how I can actually influence people to create better mental health. That language I have.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to live with that process. And so, having come through with some of those hardships and difficulties in terms of hearing and other things, in terms of stigma related to it, I can very much connect it to what people are trying to say. You try and give a listening ear to them, maybe you try and sit with them and understand those things. And I think that is very crucial, because you have to tune in. You have to be very empathetic towards other people, to your friends and your families and your relatives.
Wow, I'm so touched by your story, and as well as motivated. I'm pretty sure everybody who's listening to us would have been in shock as this coming at the end, because it doesn't seem, that's what you're saying, right? Your motivation and your hope is everything you can stand by and never let go of. Thank you so much, Prof. Raghu, for coming on our platform and sharing these wonderful, wonderful insights.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's my pleasure. For our guests, the live video will be available on our Facebook channel and also on the YouTube. You can visit our website www.neuphony.com, and all our upcoming events and our previous events could be seen over there. Thank you so much. Thank you, Prof. Raghu.
And all the best.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.